Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to the first actual recorded Pastor's Potluck podcast of
2025.
Of 2025. Dude, it felt so weird like the first time I wrote down 2025 like on a piece of paper, and it was like at the beginning part of this week. Did it go out?
Your flame went out.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But it was at the beginning part of this week. I wrote it down on Monday, actually. I was like, that felt really weird. It's always like the first,
I always struggle with it, and this year I've been killing it. I think it's because I really like 25 better than 24.
Yeah, I mean.
I like multiples of 5 more than I would like writing a number like 24.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels significant when it's the 25 or 50 or 75. That feels significant. So I've been perfect so far.
Yeah.
I know I'll mess it up eventually, but like even from January 1st, whenever I started like my prayer journal or whatever, it was like 1/1/25, and I'm like, yeah, I got this.
What year were you born?
86.
That's not a 25.
If
you could go back and change
it. That's not a significant year.
Yeah. If you
Although
could
better
go back
than
and
87, because start ending in a 7 just sounds crazy.
Yes.
I would really have a hard time if it's whenever it turns 27, I'm going to be writing 25.
Still?
Yeah, because I like it. It's going to be 25 until it's 50.
Oh, that's going to be weird.
I'm going to mess everybody up.
Nah, I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, so I think there's, not that you are obsessive compulsive, but I do believe that we do have tendencies to just little things that just make sense to each and every single one of us.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
For some reason, the number 25 reminds me of the railroads in Monopoly because they're always $250. They're the only property in Monopoly that have the exact same amount for each of the squares.
Oh, yeah.
And they're the 5th spot out of the 10 spot side. They're the number 5. And so they're 5, they're 250. It's all these multiples of 5s. I love it. So when I think 25, I think B&O, Railway.
All right.
Is that weird?
So I said earlier that I don't think you have obsessive compulsion. I think you do whenever it comes to the game Monopoly.
I'm certain I'm not the only person that knows that each side of the board is 10 squares. And so you ever notice like whenever people like roll the dice, this always frustrates me when I play Monopoly with
Where
them.
they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you're at the end and you roll an 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Just move. There's number 8 and then 9 and then 10 is the corner. You don't have to count them out. Like you can like rapid fire through that, but it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And even if you're not on the end, let's say you roll a 7, but you're on the second spot over here.
Yeah.
You know that's already 2. That's 5. Boom. You're at the railroad.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to count the spaces.
I think that people, whenever they play these games and they do hit the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, I think that's okay because I think subconsciously they're thinking what could have been, especially if places like Park Place and Boardwalk are in play.
Monopoly takes so long to play. I want you to play fast. That's why people don't play games with me. I'm way too competitive, and I'm like, listen, when it comes to games that don't matter, I will cheat.
You will cheat?
Oh, 100%. I want to win. I don't mean like I'm not stealing money out of the bank. But like if you play cards next to me, maybe cheat's a bad word. Competitive advantage, I will take it. If you play cards next to me and you're silly enough to not hide your cards, I will look.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I will. Or if you're sitting like right here and I can see the glare of it in your glasses, I will take that advantage every single time.
Yeah.
Like in Monopoly, I'm not gonna steal money from the bank, but like.
So if you're vision impaired, don't play with Pastor Scott.
No, not unless you're really good with multiples of 10. Because you got to move around that board fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
Oh, dude, you know the one thing that frustrates me is whenever people play that game Trouble, and it's got like those unique spots for like
Oh,
the
yeah.
little thing to fit perfectly inside of, and then they make sure their little piece goes into each one.
It's like, no, just count the
Yeah.
spaces and move.
Yep.
Yeah, move that. Make this thing go fast.
All right.
Oh, I said
Cool.
fast.
Welcome to the new year. It's funny how like we chase so many stinking rabbits on this podcast, and it just doesn't make sense.
I don't even know how I got to Monopoly, but I'm glad I did.
Multiples of 5
Yeah, I
in the
know.
year 25.
The year 2025 got me to Monopoly. If you want to know what it's like inside of a preacher's brain, there you go.
Yeah. Well, it is the beginning of the new year. One of the things that we have been focused on as a church, and just trying to really, really encourage individuals to get a better understanding, a better concept of, and also implementing these things in your life as well, is a fast, a spiritual fast. And I guess just right off the bat, we've got to define it. We have to understand what it is.
Yeah.
We have to know what a fast is.
Yeah.
And
Well,
educate
first
us.
off, if you all are part of our church or not part of our church, but you've been following along, this little guide is available at src.life. You can find it, and you need to find it and appreciate it because it's beautiful.
Yes.
Like, people maybe don't fully understand, like, the power. Like, everyone's freaked out about AI right now, but do you all? I would like to just tell everyone from the beginning. I'm not all in on AI, but there are things in ministry that it is very helpful for. You should not write a sermon with AI.
Correct.
Although it can help you with idea generation if you're stuck, or like if you want to compile a list of things really, really quick, it can help with stuff like that. But like this right here, this guide, I took a sermon that I wrote probably 10 years ago on fasting and had ChatGPT whittle it down to what I was saying in a 40-minute sermon into 3 pages.
Yeah.
Into these like key statements. And then it even helped with the design of this. Like, if you haven't seen this little thing, this thing is fantastic. I had another church reach out to me, actually, that saw this and was like, this is unreal. Like, this is really, really good. And they wanted to use it. And it was like, well, it's a mixture of ChatGPT, Canva, and my wife.
Yeah.
And like all my ideas, but like nobody had to sort through my brain to find it, because you can just put all of my sermons into ChatGPT and it will spit out useful information. So I just want to highlight this and give praise to the design of this, because it's one of the better things I've seen us produce in paper form, and it looks beautiful online also. So back to the original question. Sorry about that. What is fasting? Fasting is a spiritual discipline designed to replace physical or earthly needs with the desire for closeness to God. By abstaining from food or other distractions, we deepen our spiritual focus and renew our hunger for God. So fasting is a spiritual discipline. Jesus taught about fasting in a way that there was clearly an expectation that followers of Jesus would fast, because he actually, in the Sermon on the Mount, when he teaches on fasting, he says, when you fast. And then he gives instructions on what it's supposed to look like, which means that when Jesus was teaching his followers, it was going to be an expectation that they were to fast. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a part in the story of Jesus where people, the religious leaders, criticize him and his followers for not fasting. And he says, no. They're not supposed to fast right now while I'm here. That's something that they will do once I'm gone. He says you're not going to fast when the bridegroom is here. Like, so his followers didn't need to fast when they had him right there in front of them, but he taught in a way that says when you fast, meaning after I'm gone and back sitting at the right hand of the Father, seated on the throne, at that moment, then fasting will be very, very important for you, because I won't be here physically anymore. I'll be here in a spiritual sense through the Holy Spirit, which is still better than what they ever had before that. But like, you need something to help ignite a fire in you.
Yeah.
Because I hear Christians all the time. They're like, man, I wonder what it would have been like to have been one of those disciples, or what would it have been like to be on that mountainside.
I think a lot
when Jesus was teaching the Sermon on the Mount.
I think a lot more difficult than people realize.
A lot more difficult, but I get it too. Like, he's right there, so of course you're going to feel like Peter and them felt a closeness to him that would be like, it would be like something that we've not experienced, even though I
Yeah.
get it. We have the Holy Spirit. He's the comforter. He's our helper.
We also have a lot more of the story than they did too.
Yeah, we also have a lot more of the story. We have all of that. But like Jesus knew this was going to be something that was going to be so important for us
Yeah.
because everything in life that's not God or God related is always trying to dull our passion for God. Everything seeks to dull our passion for God. In fact, if you want to know what your spiritual enemy's tactic is in life, what he wants to do to you is he wants to dull your desire for God. Because at the moment that he can get your desire for God to wane, then he can get your interest in other things to be greater. So what he tried, like, this is why there's a lot of people in our church fasting social media right now.
Yeah.
Because they know, this is funny, like, that we'll do this for 31 days, and then right after 31 days, like, you fasted it because you knew it was killing you.
Yeah.
But after 31 days, you're going to jump right back into it, even though you know that you fasted it because it was killing your desire for God. And I'm not saying that it should be a permanent thing. I'm off social media except for work purposes, and plan to stay that way as long as I can. But it's funny. It's like, I know it's killing my desire for God, but as soon as this 31 days is over, hop right back on. I'd say maybe not. Maybe this 31 days trains you to go, you know what? I'm only going to open it up for an hour, not even an hour, 15 minutes each night and check in or whatever. Maybe what this is supposed to do is to change your desires to where it's like, no, I don't need to sit there and scroll. Maybe I could go and read the Psalms instead because I like the feeling that I get when I feel closer to God. When I get on social media, like this is me, and I don't mean to be like too brutally honest for people, but I get on social media and I see some of the stuff people posting, and I'm just like, goodness gracious. Like my mind just goes through every name in the book, like, seriously, what are you doing? Like, and so it's like, you know, that's not good for, like, that sort of stuff dulls your hunger and your desire for God, and that's why we fast it. Now, the reason, like, fasting as far as the food side of it, I think, for me, I'm always a little bit of a Pharisee in the fact that, like, the only fast that you see in the scriptures is food, which is, I'm not saying social media fast is a bad thing. Yeah. I'm doing that in addition to but the only fast that you ever see is a food fast or a water fast.
Yeah.
And the reason is there's something about that hunger that drives us to a weakness, that drives us to find strength in God.
Yes.
That's why you don't – I know that, like, we get these little twitches when we haven't been on social media or haven't watched television in a while. Like, our brain, like, plays tricks on us.
Yeah, it's almost kind of – it's just the dopamine hit whenever you see something exciting or funny. Whenever you're streaming or whenever you're doom scrolling or whatever that is, it's the dopamine hit, and then you can
get that longing for it.
Yeah.
But it's not a hunger pain. That's why, like, right now, and again, I understand the fact that Jesus says when you fast, you're not supposed to tell anybody. You're not supposed to, because what the Pharisees would do, they would fast twice a week, but they would, like, make themselves look really sad when they were doing it, so the way people would feel sorry for them. So Jesus, like, they're only fasting to get people to recognize them. And so I get that fasting is supposed to be a very private thing. I have to share about mine as a Christian leader, so the way I can help teach and disciple. So, like, right now it's 3:19. I fast every day during this fast from 10 to 5. Mm-hmm. So I sat through a meeting today where everyone except for, like, one other person who is my wife, who was doing the 10 to 5 fast with me, and my sister, who's doing a fast until 2 every day, was eating food. And I'm sitting there, I'm like,
I want a snack.
And, like, as we sit right here at 3:20, my stomach is physically hurting. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a good thing, because what that's doing is it drives me. Every time I feel that, I go, all right, God, I need you. I need you. Like, it shows you that you can actually do more difficult things than what you think you can.
Yeah.
Whenever the motivation behind it is right. Like, I'm not fasting to try to lose weight. I'm fasting because I want that constant reminder, and I want to show God my dedication to him, to go, I want to be desperate for you, that even if I am hungry, that you are absolutely still enough. And like what it's supposed to do is not meant to be just a 31-day weirdness and then you just go back to your regularly scheduled programming on February the 1st. This is supposed to change your behaviors for the rest of the year. So if you're a person that doesn't pray and read your Bible regularly, but you found more time in January to pray and read your Bible because you got off of social media or because you stopped doing some sort of activity that you were doing, well, don't revert that and go right back to it. Continue to find that time when you are connecting with God through prayer and worship and things of that nature. Like this is supposed to alter our behavior far beyond the 31 days.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those. Most of the time that I spend with God personally is in the mornings right before it's time to get kids up and ready for school, and taking that time to not focus on eating anything, but just reiterating the importance of why I'm connecting with God that early in the morning has been really, I mean, it's eye-opening for me because it's like, okay, why did you pick this time to do this? Because you understand that the distractions are going to be a lot less because there's 72 kids in my house. Yeah. That's what I'm finding, even though like we're still like relatively early on in this. For me, it's finding that time that's like, okay, there's a reason why you pick this time and alleviating distractions. And for me, one of those distractions just so happens to be breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's been nice for me is by essentially not eating lunch, but not even like not eating lunch, but like I stretch it beyond lunch because I want those afternoon hours to literally, I want to feel something. Like that's what I'm going after. Yeah. Is I want there to be a constant reminder for a couple of hours that I'm doing something that's difficult, that I want God to show up in the midst of that desperation of like, man, I sure would like to go eat pizza right now. But I also really, there's that physical reminder to pray constantly. And so what I like today when in that meeting, everyone went to eat, and I heard Megan actually open up her Bible app, and it was Proverbs, and I was like, oh, she's doing her thing right now. I want to go do that. So I just got up and left and went into my office, which is where I do the vast majority of my time with the Lord. I like to do it. Like, this has been such a difficult thing for me to figure out as a Christian, because like, especially when you're a pastor, like you go through seminary or you're around other pastors and you listen to how they do their spiritual disciplines, and I've never heard someone else describe their spiritual disciplines that doesn't make me feel worse about mine. Yeah. Like every time, like if you read, I can't remember which one of the like big giants in the church, like John Wesley or somebody like that, would pray for 3 hours before they started their day. I read that like in seminary or early on in ministry. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got it all wrong. I've got to do that. I've got to get up and do that. And so I remember, or all these people, they're like, you got to start your day with the Lord. I'm like, dude. So I tried this, and I would wake up and I would go sit in my recliner. And this was in our old house when I had a recliner, and sit in the recliner, and it was so early in the morning, I would just end up asleep.
Yeah, you've mentioned that here on this podcast.
The Lord, you know what? I don't think He really wanted to hear from me at 5:30 in the morning.
No.
Like we're all wired differently. It's been such a journey to, I told, I was talking to one of my pastor friends one time, and I was like, I do all sorts of stuff that feeds my soul, but all I ever get in messaging from other pastors is, no, you got to get up, you got to pray, you got to read your Bible. I'm like, but I read like a lot of books that feed my soul. Yeah. I listen to, even though I'm not a musical person, I cannot sing to save my life.
I think you sing better than you think
I know
you do.
A couple of chords on the guitar, but I can't play a song. I love music. Yeah. And so worship music feeds me as much as anything, but you get this messaging from people that goes, well, that doesn't count. And this set me free. Like when this guy, he's like, no, listen, all of it counts. He said, you're talking to me right now because you feel like you need spiritual help. And guess what? That counts as part of your devotion to God. It's not just what they say counts. And so that like it's taken me forever to figure out how to have a rhythm. And then at a preaching seminar that we hosted here at Southridge, 2 months ago, back in November, I've never heard another pastor say this, and it's been something that's helped me more than anything I can remember. I've been told from the time I started seminary that as a pastor, studying for a sermon does not count as time with God. And that you have to have something that you're privately studying in addition to what you are publicly teaching. I've been told that since seminary.
I think that there's moments that you do need to have connection with God, because I think through sometimes you still got to have this connection with God. Yeah. So God's going to speak to you, but he's also going to lead you to give you stuff that is specifically for our church. But I think that discounting the time that you were spending with God
was craziness.
Is craziness.
I don't know why I ever fell for it, because here's what was happening.
You're like, dude, I'm praying and reading the Bible. Like, what else? What do you think else I'm going to be doing?
And so I was putting this pressure on myself to go, I need to wake up. I need to read my Bible. I need to pray. And then I go into the office, and what do I do most of my week? Yeah. I read my Bible and pray. And so, like, there would be mornings I would wake up and I wouldn't want to do it. Next thing I would know, it would be like 2 weeks that I hadn't done quote-unquote quiet time, and I would feel horrible, like, oh, man, I'm not a real pastor. And all the while, I'm spending 5, 10, 15 hours a week studying God's Word. And I'm not sitting here thinking, Scott, don't you remember you're not the one that writes that sermon every week? You're getting that because you're praying and spending time with God. Yeah. Why wouldn't that count? And that guy told us at that preaching seminar, he goes, I'm not a devotional guy. I've never been good at it. If I'm going to spend time with the Lord, I'm spending the time 10, 15, 20 hours a week working on a sermon. So I'm with the Lord all week. And I was like, you're the first guy I've ever heard say that.
Yeah, I think it's just like saying, oh my gosh, like you've got to spend a different amount of time for your relationship with your wife.
Yeah, well, it would be like, okay, so you're in here on Thursday night with the worship team.
Yeah.
And if I was like, no, you know what you need as a worship pastor? You're supposed to have a private time of worship. So after practice, you need to go home and spend. Why? I'm in there singing songs to the Lord. Granted, we are practicing, but to act as if what we are doing in ministry is just, well, the Spirit's not there because it's not Sunday morning. It's like, no, that can feed us.
Oh, yeah. You ask anybody on that worship team, there's been multiple times to where we've sat there and we've got done with a song and we just hang out there and, go find another song. And then we continue to worship. We continue to, there's... Yeah, I just like the idea of
it has to count, man.
I've got to spend 2 separate times to be able to connect with my wife. That's what it's come across as.
It's so silly.
You're supposed to have not only just your dinner time together where y'all sit down and you have conversations over dinner, but you need to have you need to get coffee and sit down and have conversations over coffee.
Everything has to count.
And don't forget about that intimacy that y'all are supposed to be having too.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 conversations have revolutionized, because what was happening is I was spending so much time feeling bad about my lack of discipline that what it would do is it would lead me to make really poor decisions in my life.
Yeah,
where I would go like I feel like I would go and look for something to try to numb the guilt or the shame of not being quote unquote a pastor.
Yeah,
and a lot of that stemmed from this shame that I always heard from these people that like, no, you need a personal devotional time every single morning. And I've heard pastors say it. If you don't do that, you don't got no right to stand up and say anything to anybody on Sunday. And when I hear this, like, no, everything we're doing to encounter God counts.
Yeah.
That changed everything.
Yeah.
So it's like some mornings I do my prayer journal. And right now, I'm learning that if I have a morning, that because another one of my friends, I told him about the struggle I was having earlier this year. I said, man, I just always feel guilty because I'm not spending enough time reading and praying. He goes, dude, you're married, you have 2 kids, you're leading a church. Like, if you miss a day, you've got to find a way to just give yourself a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
Like, just go at it, like, because what would happen is if I missed a day, I'd get guilty. I'd feel guilty, and then I didn't want to show up the next day, and then I'd go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month without having quiet time, and I would feel so bad about it, and not even thinking of all the time I was spending with the Lord. And like he was like, no, like you're a young dad with all sorts of stuff going on. He's like, if you can't do 7 days, do 5. Yeah. Give the Lord what you have.
Yeah.
And then also understand that all this other stuff counts. So those are some conversations that set me free in regards to this.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, long story short, whatever it is that discipline that you are learning through the prayer and fasting process this month, I really hope that you don't just discard it as that was a church event and now back to my normal life.
Yeah, February 1st, everything goes back to normal.
This is meant to transform the rest of your life and the rest of your year.
Yeah, because we've talked a little bit about the why fasting.
Yeah,
we've talked about the intimacy. We've talked about the freedom from distractions that can happen if you're doing something and you're cutting it out of your life. The time that you would usually spend doing something needs to be replaced with spending time with God.
Yeah, that's the thing that most people miss in the fast. And this is another reason why the reason why I think meals are so powerful for fasting is because that's a natural pause where you can open up the Word and pray.
Yeah.
If you're just fasting from social media, certainly there's times that you normally scroll that then you go into pray. But if you're doing some sort of fast, there has to be a way for you to replace what's being taken out, or else it's not really going to do you any good.
Yeah.
So if you're only skipping dinner, let's say that you're skipping dinner for the next 31 days.
Yeah.
That might give you some health benefits, which is not the point of a spiritual fast.
No.
But if you're not during dinner time, sitting down at the dinner table with your Bible and praying and replacing the time where you would normally be cooking and eating with time with the Lord, well, then you're missing out on the fast.
Yeah.
So between 10 and 5 when I'm fasting, if I don't pause at least at some point in there and read we're reading Psalms together. If I'm not doing that, spending some time in prayer, then all I'm doing is getting the health benefits of not eating for 7 hours.
Proverbs.
Yeah, Proverbs. Yeah, Proverbs.
I was like, bro, I didn't see Psalms in there
so
at any point.
So if you don't miss, if you're not removing something through the fast and then replacing it with something, then you're really missing the point of the fast.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things too that is very, very, very important for this fast, or the purpose of a fast, is breakthrough in prayer.
Yeah.
There's been so many times throughout my life that I've heard that people went on a fast and were praying for something for the sole purpose of one thing to happen in their lives. Hey, I'm going, I would hear people at the church that we grew up in, I'm going to fast and we're going to pray for so-and-so's healing, from cancer because they just got a terrible diagnosis. Or, I'm believing that God's going to, provide a job or money in some way. I believe that there's a boldness that comes through that type of approach to fasting and prayer whenever it's just specifically about one thing. Whenever it's specifically saying, God, we have tried, we have exhausted everything. The only thing that I know left to do is to cut something out of my life and spend time praying
100%.
And bringing this to your feet.
If anybody listens to me teach regularly, you all already know this story. The reason why I think that I'm still at Southridge Church, other than the fact that it was God's will, was when I was the associate pastor here, I felt so strongly that I was supposed to be a lead pastor that I told Megan, I said, we had a pastor here. So I was like, I can't stay here. So I started putting in applications other places, and I went through a process where I got down to the final 2 to go to a church in Ohio to be their lead pastor, and I didn't get chosen when I came back. But I was up front with our elder board and our pastor. I said, listen, I told them that even before I went to interview at this other church. I feel called to being a lead pastor, which is why they started letting me come to elder meetings. They were committed to raising me up as a lead pastor and sending me out.
Yeah.
I told them when I got back from that, because it was a pretty painful process to go through to not get chosen. I said, well, here's what I'm going to do is that happened in March. I said, later this year, I'm going to pray and fast, and by fall, I'll give you an answer as to what I feel led whether I need to stay here or whether I need to continue to pursue other lead pastor options. And that summer, I went on a 40-day prayer and fasting where I did not eat between like 10 and 5 or 9 and 4 or something. And I will never forget, during that 40 days, I had to lead a mission trip to New York City with a bunch of teenagers and volunteers. And it was miserable because I'm in the greatest city on earth for food, New York City, and I'm having to miss lunch every day. And the dinner was always back at the church. So it was like some homemade, I wasn't getting the New York City experience by missing lunch. And I remember how miserable that was. But at the same time, I was so committed, like I needed an answer from God. Like, listen, my future is riding on this, God. I need you to tell me what I'm supposed to do with my family. You called me into ministry at this ministry conference over in Lexington. I still remember it was at Quest Church. I remember when it happened. You called me to be a preacher, to be a lead pastor, and I'm at a church where I'm not the lead pastor and they have a lead pastor, but you got to tell me what you want me to do. I thought the door was open. You closed that door on me, so now I'm very confused. So I'm praying and fasting. I've got to get an answer. And I'm telling you, I got all the way to day 40, and I'll never forget this. I'm praying on day 40. I tell God, why you haven't said anything.
Yeah.
You have not said anything, and I will continue to pray and fast till you say something, almost like a threat, like God's going to go like, oh, no, don't do that. Like, so I'm just going to keep going. I will continue to do this 10 to 5 or 9 to 4. I don't remember what I was doing that time. Fast until you say something. Okay? Continue to fast. And then what happened on day 41, I fasted again, went back to God in prayer, and he whispered one word, stay. And I had waited 41 days to get that answer. And it's why I'm still here today. Because if not, in my flesh, I would have been like, no, this don't make no sense, Lord. You tell me that I'm supposed to be the lead pastor. Can't be the lead pastor of this church, so I'm going to leave and go find another. I would have screwed up God's plan.
Yeah.
At least on some level. I don't think my theology allows for me to really mess up God's plans that much. But like, I think I would have made an unwise decision that might have come with a little bit of pain for my family. So like that. Yes, fasting helps with intimacy with God, but there is also if you go through a season where you need an answer or you need a breakthrough for something, then fasting is also very because what happened was when the Lord told me to stay, instead of me going and trying to have my own way, 6 weeks later I was sitting in front of the elder board of this church to be asked to become one of the lead pastors of this church.
Yeah.
I could have, if I had not prayed and fasted about what God wanted me to do and sought him in prayer for a breakthrough and for an answer, I might have been like, who knows? Who knows what could have happened? And all of a sudden, I get to see God's plan unfold because I would do that. And so breakthrough in prayer, freedom from distractions, of course, is another reason why. But just remember, no matter what it is, what type of fast you're doing, or the reason why you feel like you're doing it, God is to be the center of it.
Yes.
Right, and I say that because what happens is sometimes the fast gets to be the center of it, and that's you're missing the point.
Yep.
Right, so if you're off social media and you spend all day just like, oh, I wish I was on social media.
I wonder what my
and you're spending all your time about like, oh, I wonder what's social media. I can't wait to get back on social media. And if all of that, it's going to detract from your fast. It was the same thing. So the next part of this little guide is the different types of fast. There's a partial fast, an absolute fast, a supernatural fast. Supernatural fast was one where we don't tell people to do this. This is something that only, I think, through the power of God, people do. I have heard about people that do this for like health purposes, but I don't know. It sounds crazy to me that you could go 40 days without food.
Yeah, some of the ones that I've heard, I know individuals that have done this, and it's not just water. So they will drink things like bone broth to make sure that they're getting a little bit of calories. Yeah. They will make sure that they're taking vitamins.
I just saw Kevin James say he did 41 days
of just water.
Just water with electrolyte salt. So I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm skeptical of it.
I think that has to be that has to come from God.
Yeah,
that has to come from God.
Yeah, I think so. the absolute fast is no food or water, but for a short period of time. And I actually think I'm going to do this later. What I like to do whenever I'm fasting, especially for a long period like 31 days, is I like to, at some point in the middle of it, increase where it's normally 10 to 5. I may try like a 48 hour later this month.
Yeah.
Not to test myself or anything like that, but like I want that heightened desire for the Lord through the constant reminder of hunger to be driven to Him. So I may try the absolute fast in addition to what I'm already doing. But then like a partial fast might be something like restricting certain foods or meals, like the Daniel fast. And that's one of the points I wanted to make, because I was saying sometimes the fast becomes the focus.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't do the Daniel fast anymore. If you're doing the Daniel fast, God bless you. You're welcome. I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's in the Bible for a reason.
Most everybody I know, they let everybody know that they're doing the Daniel.
Exactly. The problem, and if you don't know what the Daniel fast is, the Daniel fast essentially you can't eat meat. You can really only eat like vegetables, fruits, and legumes.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Legumes.
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 Like legumes.
No, it sounded like you're saying like lagoon, like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
No, legumes.
Yeah,
like beans.
Yeah, legumes.
Legumes. Y'all know what I'm saying. Lentils and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's all you can eat. And what happens, like every time, and I'm not throwing shade at anyone that, I'm sure there's people in our church, because we used to do the Daniel fast every single year at this church.
Yeah.
Like when I first started attending here, every year it was the Daniel fast. So I'm not throwing shade at people that are doing it or used to do it. But for me, the problem always turned out to be I wasn't spending time with the Lord, because I was always wondering, what can I eat? Okay, here's this ridiculous fast as far as like, well, because like there's books that's written on it. So like it's like, oh, you can have whole grains, and then you can have corn tortilla chips.
You can pick and choose everything from all these different books, and next thing you know, the only thing that you're not eating is turkey breast, and you're like, oh, sounds good to me.
When you're like, what happened was we were so busy planning our next meal that it was like, is this fast drawing you to the Lord, or just drawing you to like a meatless diet that you're having to spend hours a day going to the grocery store and figuring out a recipe? So like for me, it never worked. I'm certain it might work for other people.
You spend more time prepping.
Exactly. That's what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I'm telling you, we were so committed to the Daniel fast at this church for the longest time. Like I remember having volunteer meetings in the month of January. Early on in ministry here, and we would have to, because everyone in the church was doing it, we would have to have like vegetable soup as what we would serve for lunch, because all of our volunteers and everyone in the church was doing the Daniel fast. Like it was so intense around here. But for me, it was always like, we're just trying to figure out what soups I can make. And I spent so much time with that I never really felt like it drew me closer to the Lord, because here's what would happen. Whatever I was allowed to eat, I'd eat a mess load of it. So I was never hungry. So I was never feeling that draw to the Lord. It was like, okay, just tell me what I'm allowed to eat, because I'm about to eat like more than what you've ever seen somebody eat this many green beans. I'll do it. Like I used to go to Cracker Barrel on the Daniel fast, and they've got a vegetable plate where you can get 4 side dishes as your meal. That's what I would get.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, it wasn't sacrifice in the way that I needed it to be. Again, not throwing shade. If you do the Daniel fast, it's in the Bible. Go ahead, do the Daniel fast as long as it does it for you. It did not do it for me.
But also, like, if there's, finding something to fast, because there are individuals, like, we're not trying to say, like, if, like, the doctors say that you need to have a certain amount of caloric intake every single day, because you have, like, some serious medical issues that you need to take medicine with and stuff like that. I think, consult with your doctor. Let him know what's on your heart and what's going on with the church and stuff like that, and see what he says, and then try to find something. If he says no, you need to be eating.
Yeah, if you've got blood sugar issues, diabetes, different things like
some medical condition that requires you to eat, or some
might be
medicine.
more appropriate to fast TV if that's your physical issue or whatnot. That's such a good point. Please don't do something that's going to, like, for me, I know later this month, if I want to do a 2 or 3 day absolute fast, like, I'm perfectly healthy enough to do that.
Yeah.
But like, if I had some underlying health concerns, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Don't end up in the ER because your church wanted you to fast.
Yeah, that's all we need is like some police showing up. They told you told them to not eat. We're
Yeah,
like, what are you
what
talking
are
about?
y'all
Like, we're not a
doing?
cult.
Yeah. All right. Let's do the last thing I want to hit in this is when to fast.
Yes.
This I will just say without a shadow of a doubt. Early on in ministry, I totally stole this from somebody else. But you guys you'll get to know. Like if you're in ministry, you know this. Most of the stuff that people say in ministry, they got from somebody else. Even all the people that you listen to, and they're like, oh my gosh, that sermon's so great. Listen, that idea came from like a commentary or a pastor that lived like 200 years ago. We're all recycling each other's information. We're trying to get the Lord to give us a fresh perspective on it. Absolutely. But I got this from James McDonald, who was a guy early on in ministry that I really looked up to and respected. And his sermon on fasting really affected me, and I taught it to our church here. And that's where this when to fast. And it actually comes from Isaiah chapter 58. And it just kind of like walks through.
So it's not nothing that needs to just hold off until January 1st.
No.
Like if you're like
yeah, fasting's a discipline.
Yes.
You're supposed to get a taste of it right now.
Yes.
And then it's supposed to be unleashed in your life from this point forward. So you go, all right, really struggling with something later this year. Hey, why don't I fast about it? Why don't I take a day? I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to pray.
Or I would think of something like, okay, I'm dealing with some kind of like lustful sin, pornography, impure thoughts or something like that. And this is March. Don't wait until January.
Yeah,
don't wait
we'll
for another 9 months. Like,
we'll fix that then.
No.
Don't do that.
No. Let's get this addressed. Like,
yeah, like if you go and read Isaiah 58, like this is just how James McDonald broke it out. I thought it was brilliant. When you feel stuck in sin, you should fast.
Yeah.
When you are carrying a heavy burden, you can fast. When you need to pray for others, you can fast. When you want to give sacrificially, so like if you want to give but you don't feel like you can give, fast about it. Watch what God does. When you need encouragement, fast. When you need answers, fast. When you need to examine yourself, fast. When you need spiritual direction or restoration, fast. When you long for revival, fast. These are all great times for you to fast. Do not put it off until, and honestly, if you're listening to this for some reason and you're like, I didn't know we were doing prayer and fasting, it's this will come out on the 10th.
yeah.
It's the 10th, and you go, well, I guess I'll get them next year. No, just jump in.
Yeah.
Jump in for the last 21 days.
Yeah, the good thing is that like these days are scheduled out in here. They're not defined. They're not like stuck to January 1. They just say day 1. And so if this is something that the Lord is putting on your heart to start in September, you can pick up any time. It's not just a fast that's connected to the beginning of a new start and a new, resolution or anything like that. This is just a guide for you to be able to have to go through something. If you have never done it before, you've done it 100 times. Just something, kind of like a blueprint for a fast. And it's just a way for you to be able to connect with God, to be renewed, just like the title of it is. And seeking Him and spending time with Him and cutting those things out of your life that we're so dependent on. And it's saying, God, I need to focus my dependency on you, not the things of this world, but things that are spiritual.
Yep.
So good. I'm excited. And then we end all of this, if you are here local with us, that we've got a 31 days prayer and fasting, and then we've got a 24 hours of prayer, January 31st.
Yeah, coming up. Make sure you get signed up for that 24 hours of prayer. It's fun.
SRC.life.
SRC.life, as always. It's time for the worst part of the Pastor's Potluck for me.
Dude, this is the best one. It's the first one of the year. It's going to be so good.
I should have a better attitude about the mystery meat.
Yeah, you need to go on a fast for it.
I think what happens is I give everything that I've got to the actual topic, and then when it comes to this, I would love to have like a really good answer, but like I'm spent by the time I get to it.
I know.
Maybe I should do it at the beginning, and then I'll have like snappy response.
No, this is actually right up your alley
All right, let's
because
do it.
you've got an opinion on stuff.
On everything. On everything. Just ask my wife.
Can you think of something that everyone looks ridiculously doing?
Something that everyone looks ridiculous doing.
Yeah.
Huh. That's really a tough one. I don't even want to say what popped in my head because I know I will get so much hate.
Yeah.
I got to think of a different one.
I think riding a mechanical bull, like, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
You look ridiculous doing that.
Yeah.
I think all them people that get out, and I know this is this is just for me, but if you go to a place and they're dancing and stuff like that, everybody gets out and does line dancing. I think that's just the most absurd looking thing ever.
All right, especially, I just thought of this because it was Christmas was just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Matching pajamas or clothes is ridiculous. I mean, can we just make the madness stop?
Yes.
It is the absolute worst.
Don't send me a Christmas photo, or since that's
You
going
and your
away.
Jammies.
Since like the Christmas postcards are going away, don't be reminded of this every single year whenever you post your Christmas photos.
Even not even just the Jamies. I don't like the matching outfits. I think it looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Even, you know how many times you and I've dressed alike on a Sunday?
Yeah. No, I'm saying if you are like doing a photo shoot and you're gonna like coordinate colors, that's okay.
Yeah.
Coordinating colors. I'm saying, don't put all three of them kids in the daggone same suit that the dad's wearing. That's just silliness. Don't do it. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Because don't you have a family photo of you and your kids and Megan? Y'all are all wearing like black shirts. It was on top of that parking garage.
Yeah. But we're not wearing the same thing.
No, but you also got them professionally taken, and you got them printed out, and they're hanging up in your house.
Yeah, but especially the Christmas pajamas that everybody, and the dad always just like, he's just always so mad that he had to wear the matching pajamas. That, for me, I think anyone that's wearing matching outfits looks ridiculous. I'm sorry if that's you. I know someone out there listening, like, you make a living off of making matching pajamas for people, but
Kenneth went out of his way to get the matching ugly Christmas sweater that I wear, so we could be matching.
He did. Now, if you're making fun of somebody, I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
I am all in on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love when the families do it. The dad never looks happy. So it's like, you got me wearing this. It's like
it's even worse. It's even worse whenever they get like the matching jammy for the dog.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's another. Stop putting clothes on animals. Stop it.
No, it makes for good videos whenever they put like the little shoes on them, because then they don't know how to walk.
I saw one last week or the week before, or maybe Megan showed it to me, and it was a cat that had the Batman mask on.
Oh yeah,
and,
like,
oh my gosh, I love it so much.
And then they put the mask on him. He's like, meow meow meow
meow meow meow. Yeah. I love cats. So
yeah, that's a funny video.
Stop dressing your cats up unless you're making really cool TikToks.
Yeah, Batman videos. Well, if you have any more questions, I'm sure Pastor Scott is eager to answer all your questions. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not trying to poke fun at this.
100%. I would love to help you with this.
Because it's or even if you need more clarification, like, reach out to one of us, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have, or maybe get you pointed in the right direction, or just whatever. If it comes to fasting, we just want people to maybe look at their spiritual walk with the Lord in a different light and be challenged to do something, but also come out on the other end of this closer and more reliant on God in every aspect of life and everything that we do. But we love you all. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, and we'll see you next week for more conversation on fasting.
Yes.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.